My name's John Carter. I'm 44 years old and I've been working night shifts as a security guard for most of my adult life. Divorce does that to you, makes the nights longer and lonelier, and the paychecks just enough to remind you what you used to have. For the last 3 years, I've been stationed at the Bellwether Museum of Natural History in upstate New York. It's one of those places with creaky floors and taxidermied animals whose glass eyes seem to follow you as you walk. Most of the night is uneventful, just me and my flashlight doing rounds, maybe catching the cleaning staff sneaking a nap. But last Monday, things changed. It was the first night back on the job after a short break. I'd taken a week off to visit my daughter in Ohio. My ex says she's been having nightmares. I thought some dad time would help. When I came back, something about the museum felt off. The air was thicker, like walking into a room where someone had just been yelling, even though everything was silent. My supervisor, Randy, a guy who smells like beef jerky and stress, handed me a new route. "You'll be covering the East Wing now," he said. "Egyptian and Mesoamerican exhibits. Funding reshuffle. Just temporary." I didn't mind. The East Wing had always intrigued me. It was rarely open to the public, partly because most of its artifacts hadn't been fully catalogued. Rumor had it the museum acquired them through a sketchy private estate sale in the 70s. All I knew was, the place gave off a weird vibe even during the day. That night, around 1:10 a.m., I was walking past the Hall of Forgotten Kings, a dimly lit corridor lined with ancient funerary masks and stone effigies, when I heard it, footsteps. Not echoing behind me, but in front. I froze. The hallway was empty. I called out. "Hello. This is security. You're not supposed to be here." No answer. I moved forward, heart ticking faster with each step. My flashlight beam landed on something peculiar, a dark smear on the floor, like dried paint. But it wasn't paint. It looked fleshy. Wet, almost. I knelt to inspect it, and the closer I got, the colder I felt. Then I heard it, breathing. Not mine. It was coming from behind one of the exhibits, a basalt statue of some unknown Mesoamerican deity with a crocodile face and a necklace of skulls. The sound was deep, labored, and wet, like someone dragging each breath through water. I don't scare easy. But I drew my baton. "Who's there?" No response. I stepped closer, and that's when the statue's eyes gleamed, just for a second, like a trick of the light. Only, there was no light. I stood there frozen, flashlight trembling in my hand. The eyes of the statue, black obsidian orbs that had always looked dead and dull, had gleamed. Just once. Not a reflection. Not a trick. A glint. Like something inside was watching. I tried to shake it off. I tapped the flashlight against my palm, checked the battery, even flicked the beam across the statue's face again. Nothing. Just cold stone. Maybe I was still jet-lagged from the drive back from Ohio. Maybe I was imagining things. But the hallway had gone quiet. Too quiet. No more hum of the overhead lights. No distant buzz of the janitor's floor buffer. Just a silence that felt like it was listening. I kept moving, slower now, toward the staff room at the end of the corridor. That's when I saw the second smear. This one was higher, streaked along the wall like someone had dragged their hand across it. Same color, same strange texture. And embedded in the middle of it, stuck like a fly in amber, was a single human fingernail. Pink. Torn. Fresh. I reached for my radio. "Randy, you there?" Static. Again, louder. "Randy? Something's going on in the East Wing. You copy?" Nothing but fuzz. That's when I noticed it, all the security monitors were black. The ones wired to this section of the museum. Every other wing was fine. Lit. Streaming. But this hallway. It was like we'd been cut off. And then, the footsteps came back. Not hurried. Not stumbling. Measured. Heavy. Intentional. Coming from behind me now. I turned fast, too fast, and my flashlight slipped from my hand, clattering to the floor. The beam spun wildly, catching glimpses of walls, display cases, and for a split second, legs. Thin, gray, like leather stretched too tight over bone. And bare feet. Then the light went out. I scrambled to grab it, breath catching in my throat, but the footsteps had stopped again. The hallway was empty. But the statue? It had moved. Just slightly. Tilted a fraction of an inch toward me. Its necklace of skulls now dangled in a different direction. And that's when I realized something that made my stomach twist. There were fresh teeth marks in the stone. I backed away slowly, eyes locked on the statue. The teeth marks were real, deep gouges, like something had tried to bite out of the stone. And not with tools or chisels. With jaws. Wide, human-shaped jaws. I had half a mind to run, but my legs wouldn't budge. I stood there, sweating through my uniform, heart beating like a jackhammer in my chest. That's when the whisper started. Faint at first. Like wind through a vent. But there are no vents in that corridor, nothing but sealed cases and 100-year-old brick. It was coming from one of the glass displays. I turned and faced it. Inside the case was a funerary urn, Mayan by the look of it, painted with symbols too worn to read. The whisper got louder as I approached. Not in English. Not in Spanish. Something old, guttural, wet-sounding. I leaned in closer, stupidly, like a moth to flame. And then the glass fogged up, from the inside. 3 small handprints appeared. Child-sized. Each one slowly pressing against the inner glass. The whispering turned into murmuring, and then a single, clear word. Listen. I stumbled back, nearly falling. That word hadn't been spoken aloud. It was in me. Behind my ears. Under my skin. Like a thought I never had, but someone planted there. And then, everything snapped back. The lights flickered once and steadied. The whispering cut off. The fog vanished. No handprints. Just a dusty old urn and the low hum of electricity. My radio crackled to life. John. You copy? Randy's voice. I almost sobbed. Yeah, I'm here. Jesus, where were you? I was calling for 10 minutes. You off smoking again, he chuckled. System blipped, but we're back. Everything good? No. Nothing was good. But I said, yeah. Just a glitch. I'll finish the round. I needed air. Needed to get out of that hallway. I turned and walked fast, not running but close to it, toward the stairwell leading to the central atrium. As I passed one last display, a collection of ceremonial obsidian blades, I saw something in the reflection of the glass. Not me. Not the hallway. A jungle. Dense. Wet. Moonless. And something crouched in the trees, watching me. I blinked, and it was gone. I told myself I imagined it. That I was tired. That I just missed my daughter. But I knew better. Something in that wing had seen me. And worse. It remembered me. I didn't finish my round. Not really. I did a fast, loose sweep of the east wing's perimeter, enough to satisfy whatever internal checklist Randy would go over the next morning. Then I booked it back to the security office near the main entrance. I told myself I'd write up a false report about a faulty light sensor, maybe pin the camera failure on humidity or something equally vague. When I got back, there was someone already inside. An old man, hunched over the desk, scribbling something into the maintenance log. I recognized him, Earl, the museum's night custodian. Quiet guy, maybe late 60s, always wore a red flannel under his uniform jacket. Earl had been there longer than anyone. People joked he came with the building. "You're early," I said. He didn't look up. "Didn't sleep. Join the club." He turned then, slow, as if every vertebra in his neck cracked in protest. His eyes landed on mine, and I swear, for a moment, they looked clouded, like milk swirling in water. Then they cleared. "You were in the East Wing tonight," he said. Not a question. I nodded. He closed the logbook. "What did you see?" That gave me pause. "What do you mean?" Earl leaned back in his chair and stared past me, out into the museum lobby, now dark and cavernous, lit only by the red exit signs. "They see you," he said. "That's how it starts." My skin crawled. "What sees me?" Earl gave a little shrug, like he was tired of explaining something that no one ever believed. "This place was built wrong," he muttered. "Laid right over an old ritual site. Didn't know that when they built the foundation. A dig team found bones years ago, small ones. Child-sized. They covered it up, moved the artifacts to the East Wing. Figured it'd be safer in glass cases than in the dirt." He looked at me again, harder now. "But they don't like glass. Or being watched. They watch back." I sat down across from him, suddenly feeling like a child at story time, except the story was real and I was inside it. "Who are they?" He opened the top drawer of the desk and pulled out something wrapped in brown wax paper. It was a charm, made of dried reeds and what looked like bone, tied with red twine. "Keep this on you," he said. "They only take the ones they mark. If you've heard them, you've been marked." I didn't take it. Not yet. I just stared at him, trying to process. "Have you been marked?" I asked. Earl didn't answer. He looked down at his left arm and slowly pulled back the sleeve. There, carved into his forearm, old and scarred over, was a symbol. A spiral with jagged lines cutting through it like a sun in pieces. I was young. Like you. The lights flickered again. Only once. But Earl flinched. And I knew he hadn't been joking. I didn't sleep the next day. Not really. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the charm Earl had given me still clutched in my fist like a lifeline. It felt brittle, ancient. It smelled like smoke and copper. I hadn't even noticed I brought it home until I found it still in my jacket pocket. I guess on some level, I didn't want to let go of it. When I finally drifted off, briefly, I had a dream. I was back in the East Wing. But it wasn't the museum. Not really. The walls were made of roots and stone, pulsing like veins under skin. The air was hot, damp, buzzing with low chanting that came from nowhere and everywhere. I was standing in front of the same statue, the crocodile-faced deity, but it wasn't stone anymore. Its mouth twitched. Its eyes darted. Its skin shimmered like something wet trying to stay still. Then it spoke. In English. In my voice. "Return what was taken." I woke up screaming. I called in sick that night. Told Randy I had food poisoning. He didn't question it, he never does. But I could hear something in his tone, like he was relieved I wasn't coming in. That night, I couldn't stay in my apartment. Every corner looked like it held something waiting. My daughter called around 10:30 p.m. to say goodnight. I didn't answer. I couldn't bring myself to hear her voice. I felt like whatever had marked me could hear her through me. I drove. No destination. Just roads. My hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel, charm dangling from the rear-view mirror. Around 1 a.m., I found myself back in the museum parking lot. I didn't even remember turning in. The lights inside were off. It looked dead. Empty. Except the front doors were open. Not just unlocked. Swinging. The building has an automatic lock system that engages at midnight sharp. Randy should have been inside. But the lights at the front desk were out. No sign of him. I hesitated, every part of me wanted to turn and leave. But then I remembered Earl's words, they only take the ones they mark. What if Randy had gone into the East Wing? What if he wasn't supposed to? I grabbed the flashlight from my glove box and walked toward the doors. As I crossed the threshold, the museum felt different. The air wasn't just thick. It was charged. Like the moment before lightning hits. I heard a noise then, a wet dragging sound. Like something heavy being pulled across marble. It was coming from the East Wing. The charm around my neck suddenly felt ice cold. And then I saw it, a trail of dark red, smeared across the lobby floor, disappearing into the shadows of the wing I swore I'd never enter again. But someone had to. Because Randy wasn't marked. I was. I stepped into the lobby, and the doors behind me groaned shut on their own. Not slammed. Not loudly. Just, firmly. As if whatever was in here didn't want me leaving again. The red smear led past the reception counter, across the marble floor, and into the yawning black mouth of the East Wing. I followed, flashlight beam trembling, breath shallow. My boots echoed loud, each step amplifying the silence that fought to swallow them. I passed the Hall of Forgotten Kings. Everything looked as it had before, dim, dusty, oppressive. But the obsidian blade's display was shattered. Glass everywhere. One of the blades missing. I didn't know whether to be scared of what had taken it. Or what it planned to use it on. The red smear thickened into streaks. Finger marks, handprints. Desperate ones. I thought of Randy, of his dumb grin and his terrible stories, and felt something heavy settle in my chest. Then I heard it. A voice. Weak. Raspy. Help. It came from just ahead. I quickened my pace and turned the corner into the Mesoamerican chamber. And stopped cold. Randy was there. Or part of him. He was sprawled against the far wall, pale, shaking. His shirt was torn open, soaked in sweat and blood, but no wounds I could see. His mouth was open like he was still mid-scream, but no sound came. His eyes, though. They were wide. Unblinking. Staring not at me, but at something above him. I lifted my flashlight slowly. There, hanging from the high ceiling like a bat, was a figure. Naked. Its skin was ashen, stretched taut over its bones. Its arms were too long, fingers ending in sharp, black claws. And its eyes, yellow, lidless, glowing like candle flames, locked onto me the moment my light hit it. It dropped soundlessly. Not like it fell. Like it stepped down from the air. I couldn't move. It tilted its head, studying me. Then it smiled, grotesquely wide, like its face wasn't made for smiling but did it anyway. And then it spoke. Not with a mouth. Not with a voice. With the air around me. You carry the mark. My legs broke free. I bolted back down the hall, light swinging wildly, catching fragments of twisted reflections in the glass displays, eyes blinking from inside jars, shadows slithering across walls where no shadows should be. I didn't stop until I reached the front doors. They were open again. But Earl was standing just outside. Waiting. He held something in his hands. A box. Old. Wooden. Bound with rusted metal clasps. It pulsed faintly in the dark, like it was breathing. He didn't ask what I saw. He just said, "You need to give it back." I didn't ask what was in the box. Some part of me already knew. I followed Earl in silence as we walked behind the museum through the overgrown courtyard and into a locked maintenance tunnel I'd never noticed before. He unlocked it with a brass key that looked older than the building itself. "This way," he muttered. The tunnel sloped downward, far deeper than any blueprint I'd ever seen. Roots jutted from the ceiling, and the walls dripped with condensation. The air smelled of iron and old decay. "What is this place?" I finally asked. Earl didn't answer directly. He just said, "This is where they were buried. The first ones. The quiet gods. Not gods in the way people think, more like ideas that learn to feed." As we descended, the box in his hands grew warmer. It pulsed like a second heartbeat. They were worshipped long before the artifacts were stolen. Before the museum. Before the town. They were buried, but not forgotten. And when we disturbed their resting place. He didn't finish. He didn't have to. At the end of the tunnel was a stone chamber, circular, domed, silent as a tomb. Carvings covered every inch, spirals, jagged suns, and eyeless figures with open mouths. In the center was a pit, ringed with bones and dried blood. Earl stepped to the edge. "You've been marked because they saw you in their hull. You weren't meant to see. You weren't meant to hear. But now you carry a thread between their world and ours." He handed me the box. "You must return what was taken." I knelt at the edge of the pit. My hands shook. The moment I opened the box, a low hum filled the chamber, like 1,000 voices whispering in unison. Inside was something wrapped in red cloth, soaked with something dark. I peeled it back. It was a jawbone. Small. Human. Carved with symbols that glowed faintly in the dark. "A piece of the offering," Earl said. "They want it back." I lowered it into the pit. The hum grew louder. A gust of wind, though we were underground, pushed through the tunnel, and the carvings on the walls seemed to shimmer, like something moved behind the stone. And then, silence. The box in my hands turned cold. And the mark on my skin, one I hadn't even realized had formed, right under my collarbone, began to fade. "It's done," Earl whispered. But he didn't sound relieved. We left the chamber without speaking. The door to the maintenance tunnel closed behind us, and Earl threw the key into the river near the museum parking lot without hesitation. "You shouldn't come back here," he said. "Not now. Not ever." "But what about the others?" I asked. "What about Randy?" Earl shook his head. "If you'd come any later, you'd have joined him. The ones taken can't come back." "Not really." I started to protest, but he put a hand on my shoulder. "You saw what lives beneath. That leaves a scar. Not all of it fades. That was 2 weeks ago. I quit the museum the next morning. Gave no notice. Just mailed in my badge and walked away. I've been trying to return to normal life since then, seeing my daughter more, taking on less night work. But sometimes, I still hear the whispering. Not words. Just the sound. And sometimes, when I look into mirrors or dark windows, I see those yellow eyes. Not in my reflection. Behind it. Watching. Waiting. The mark may have faded. But I don't think it ever really goes away.